What is going on, my Commanders family? It's your man Mike, and we have just wrapped up our Commanders draft of 2026. It was highly anticipated. We were waiting for this thing to get here and get done. It's finally over with, but how did we do? We only had a few picks. Um, First round, third round pick, we kind of went through a little bit. But how do you think we did with those other picks in the later rounds? That is where Adam Peters is supposed to make his money and his bread and butters in those later rounds. But how do we actually think he did? I'll give you my opinion later on. But first, let's dive into this video. Let's get it. Like we said, the draft is finally gone. It's finally over. And with a season like we had last season, the next thing you can kind of look forward to is the draft. You know what I mean? We kind of went through the combine, we went through free agency. This biggest thing that we had on our plate was the draft. So for it to finally get here and for it to be over with, it's kind of like it's kind of like the air being let out of the balloon a little bit. I felt like after the draft, especially after Friday night, Saturday, not so much, but after the draft was over, it was kind of like a sigh of relief, kind of. You kind of go into the draft, you're making these mock drafts and trying to do a little bit of research that you can. We're no experts here, but you try to study up a little bit. So when a team does make a pick, you kind of know a little bit about the player. When that pick is called. So when the draft is over, it was kind of like, oh man, like thank God this thing is over with. And you kind of want to take a little reset first to just catch your breath, just to kind of ease your mind a little bit, and next is just to really think about how we actually did in the draft. When drafts usually end initially, you kind of have mixed feelings a little bit because a lot of your emotions is in the pick. You just, oh, I want them to get a wide receiver. And if they don't pick the guy that you want, you're kind of upset. When you really didn't really look into the player that they drafted and kind of realize like, okay, maybe it's not so bad, or vice versa. In the first round you may have wanted another player in the first round and they went someone elsewhere, and then you're kind of like pissed off like, oh man, they should have got Caleb Downs, or they should have got a pass rusher, or they should have did this or that. They should have tried harder to trade back. But and then if the team doesn't do what you think they should do, you kind of have mixed feelings or whatever. Or you can be overly excited. They make a pick like a Sonny Styles, and you're just like, oh my god, like Sonny Styles, we actually got him at the seven with the seventh pick. But was that a good pick? Was Antonio Williams getting picked in the third round actually a good pick? So we're going to go through each pick. I'll give my opinion on how I feel about them or whatever, and give my overall grade. But I think it's really good to kind of sit back, think about it with unbiased, without your emotions in it. Just kind of really review each pick and kind of see how it fits the team and if it was a good draft or not. And I think that it's really good to do that because Adam Peters, some of his draft picks are a little questionable. Adam Peters came in from the 49ers with that background of making good decisions and draft picks later in the rounds. The way that it was told was that John Lynch would make the earlier picks, maybe first round through four, something like that. And then when it got into the fifth, sixth, and seventh, that's when Adam Peters really took over and was finding those gems for the 49ers. So that's what we really thought we would see a big change with our roster, was when Adam Peters would make those later picks. And so far, it's kind of a mixed bag. We had some players are no long that from that first um, draft in 2024. Some of those players are no longer with us that was drafted in those later rounds. But then you also have um, someone like Bill Crosby Merritt drafted in the seventh round last season, and he looks promising. So it's still up for debate if hey, he maybe just made some bad picks with those ones that didn't hit, or he really is true to this. He really is good at this, and we should just kind of give him time to really settle in a little bit more. It is only his third draft with us, so just kind of let him settle in or whatever. But um I think this draft will be really telling because we didn't have a lot of them. So it's when it's time for the Commanders to pick, you really need to pick, a good player because, it's not a lot of darts that you have to throw at the board. We kind of really need to make a solid pick. And I think for the most part, we did that. We did have a full detailed breakdown of the Sunny Styles pick with our earlier video. Not going to go too deep into Sunny, but I felt like that was an A+ pick right there. Definitely a need for us at linebacker. If you remember the decade plus of poor linebacker play, you bring in a green dot, great athletic player like Sonny Styles to add to this defense. I think it's a great pick for us. Then we also made another video with Antonio Williams. Not going to stay too long on him. I think that was a great pick as well. Probably I would give that a A. There were a lot of wide receivers that were available at that time. Some other receivers with size. I know that Antonio Williams is only 6 feet, maybe 185, 187, something like that. Smaller guy, but at the same time, he's able to separate, create space. He has speed. He has great hands. Everything you want in a wide receiver, he has. You just wish that he was a little bit taller. Who wouldn't want to be a little bit taller? So not going to knock him for that. If you're able to create space, JD will find you. So also think that that was a solid pick. But next, going into our other picks, we also picked up a edge rusher or outside linebacker, um, Joshua Josephs, with the 147th pick in the fifth round. And first of all, Joshua Joseph, I think that he has all of the traits that you will want in an outside linebacker, especially in the defense that we think that we're going to run, because you want linebackers that you can move around to different positions. Um, and it's not so you don't want the offense to know, okay, Sonny Styles is going to line up at will, or Luvu is going to be at Sam, or uh Joseph is going to be. You don't want offenses kind of know who's going to do what. You know what I mean? So with Joshua Joseph, this is another versatile linebacker that we're bringing into the group that you can move all over the field. You can line him up to rush the passer. He has great arm length. Arms are really long. He has the prototypical linebacker frame. He has the speed. He has, like we said, great arms. He's shown that he can rush the passer. I believe in one season he had 5 sacks, I believe. So he's shown that he can rush the passer, but he also has shown that he can cover as well. He can run sideline to sideline. Is he a finished product? Of course not. But can he, be taught and learn and be molded into maybe an eventual Luvu replacement if it comes to that? Luvu is going to be on his last year coming up. I think that we don't want to be in a spot where we're always drafting vets to start at these positions. I know when Adam Peters first took over, we had to really this roster was full of vets because the old regime did not draft well, so we didn't really have any young players to really step up and take over those roles. So we had to fill it with a lot of veteran players. But you want some of these rookies to actually step the hell up. You want them to become starters. You want them to overtake some of these veteran positions that we had to do in order to be competitive. So if a Joshua Josephs or some of the later picks that we go through, if they can eventually in 1 to 2 years become a starter, that's what you want. And I'm not under the impression that just because you're a fifth round pick, you can't eventually become a starter. I know sometimes when the draft comes, we just assume that, okay, first, second, third round players, okay, we expect them to become something. But there are a lot of NFL players that come from those later rounds that eventually um, turn into great starters. And Josephs has the frame to do it, but we'll see if the skill set will actually match the outer uh intangibles and traits that he has, because again, you can look the part, but will he actually play the part? We'll actually see. And he has some great players already to learn from. We already spoke about Luvu. He's going to be playing out of his mind this season in a contract year. And if Luvu, don't get me wrong, if Luvu plays well, I do not mind bringing him back. He's a great locker room guy. He has great energy. He did have a down season last year, but if you want to look back at that 2024 tape, he was one of the best outside linebackers in the league. So if he can bring some of that back, I would not mind, bringing that back to the Commanders and re-signing him for a short-term deal. But getting back to Joshua Joseph, I think this was also a good pick because Joseph was slotted on a lot of boards and mock drafts to really be a top 100 player. I'm not going to say, oh, he was the 90th or he was the 80th or he was not going to say that. But a lot of people had Joshua Josephs being a top 100 player. So to get someone like that in the fifth round at 147, I mean, crazy, crazy, crazy value. And when you're in the fifth round and you're looking at your board, if I'm Adam Peters, I'm looking at the best player available and I see Joshua Joseph there, with at 147, even though we went crazy with edge rushers and, we still have, we signed Chanel and we have Luvu and we signed Sonny Styles. We have these linebackers and rushers that we've signed. You can't knock the Commanders for not passing on an outside linebacker that fell all the way to 147 if he was slated to possibly go in the top 100. So for that reason alone, I think that this was a great pick, especially for the value. So again, if I'm going with a grade, I'm going with probably an A for this one because again, value, 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 but also he has everything you want to become a good outside linebacker. Can we develop him? That's going to be a lot on the coaches as well. But for 147, I don't think that we could have went um, wrong with this one. So I'm giving Joshua Josephs a grade for the Commanders drafting him in the fifth round. Next, moving on is running back. We drafted Katron Allen at 187 in the fifth round from Penn State. And this is the thumper type of back that every team needs, in my opinion. You know, right now we have smaller guys in Krosky Merritt and White, who we picked up in free agency. We didn't really have someone that can try to, a goal line type of running back that you can just hand the ball off to and he's going to pick up 2 to 3 yards. That's who we have with Katron Allen. And I know we picked him up, late in the draft. And, sometimes a lot of these running backs, don't really make it to the team. But we saw with Krosky Merritt last year in the seventh round becoming the starter, because he's shown flashes in training camp and a little bit during the season. Um, Katron Allen will be on this team, and I think that he will have solid, important roles and important plays during the season. Because there's going to be a lot of times where we need to pound the rock, especially in the near the goal line and in the red zone. You're gonna yes, we're gonna try to have our shiftier backs to run out in the outfit in the backfield and get those longer type of runs. But when you want to pick up those 2 to 3 yards, Katron Allen will always run and fall forward. Um, I think he averaged close to 6 yards per carry at Penn State, finished at as their all-time leading rusher. So for Katron Allen, I think that he is going to be valuable to the running back room and position, because you need a guy like that. You need a guy that's going to pick up those dirty yards that you can rely on. That when he's coming in the game, all right, we're going to pick up this first down. The Commanders, especially in 2024, we had a lot of those like 4th and 2, 4th and 1, and we went for it a lot in 2024. We kind of reverted back from that in 2025, not going for it a lot. That could have had a lot to do with injuries, but when I hope that we get back to that, going forward on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 and 4th and short. But now you have a back that, with Krosky Merritt or Rashad White, that might get stopped if they try to go forward on 4th and 2. Now you got this bruising back, Katron Allen, that you can put in you know, with bad intentions that could possibly pick up those yards for you, those tough yards that you need. So I think that this was another great pick, and great value as well at 187. This is a position where you could, when the draft was going on, you can think, okay, should the team go center here? Because there were a lot of great centers that were also falling off the board during this time as well, and center was a still was a great big need for us. So when you see those centers start to kind of go around this time, you kind of think, oh man, like should we grab one of these now? Um, so if you or a lot of people also wanted us to go DB. So when you get to this point in the draft, you're like, okay, should the team get a DB now? Should they get a center now? Here's where you kind of have those questions. But I think, again, the team just followed their board. They didn't go off of that. They didn't reach. If there was a corner at 187, but on their board they were 195 or 200, they wasn't going to reach for that corner just because, oh, we could get a corner right here in the 5th round. Nah, they stayed true to their board. Katron Allen was up there, probably the next best player on their board. The running back, yes, we have some running backs, and yes, we could have got another running back in free agency if we wanted to, but that was the next best position and player that was on the board, so we went with it. So not going to knock it. Um, However, for this grade, I am going to give it a B. Um, Simply because even though Katron Allen is a thumper, um, and he does always fall forward, you can rely on him to, pick up some of those nastier yards. He is just a one cut back. He makes one cut, goes upfield, and if you're in his way, he'll probably run a guy over and then, pick up, close to 5 to 6 yards. But I like my backs, even if you're a bigger guy, even if you're a thumper, I want you to have a little bit more wiggle to you. And I didn't see any from the plays and videos that I've seen from him. Every clip that I saw, it was he gets the ball, look like some sort of zone type of scheme, but he'll get the ball, he'll put one foot in the ground, go upfield, but after that is nothing else. He's not shaking anybody. He's not. It's no spin move. He may try to stiff arm you a little bit if you're off to the side, but it's one cut and go. And I feel like I would want my back to be a little bit more loose in the hips, pause. But I just a little bit more wiggle, a little bit more, you know, something to him. If somebody's in front of you, have something, and he does not. It's no one foot in the ground and then you got the other foot to go to other. It's none of that. It's one foot go. If that next go ain't there, you ain't going. It's one foot. If you ain't going, if they got you, they got him, and ain't nothing else he can kind of do from what I've seen. So yes, if that lane is there and he can put that foot in the dirt and we opened up a lane for him, yes, he can pick up those 6 yards. But we have seen, especially last season, that if we possibly tend to struggle with that offensive line and opening those running lanes, that could be an issue where he is only picking up 2 to 3 yards instead of 5 to 6. So we'll see. Hopefully, again, JD can help with that, with opening up those lanes and creating those lanes for him. But again, I'm only going to give it a B, could be a B minus, just because I don't see any other he's kind of like stiff in the hips to me when it comes to like a cutting. You know, that one foot in the ground and cutting and going, I think you need a little bit more than that, especially in this offense that I believe that we're going to be running. So, but yeah, we'll see about Katron Allen, man. I'm not, I give it a B because again, the value, and he does have, a great track record of, his averaging, close to 6 yards per carry. He always falls forward. He has some positives in his game, but again, I want him to have a little bit more. So we will see if he can show that. He could have it. I'm just not seeing it. We can see if he shows it or if he can develop that once he gets to the league, once he gets on the playing field. Next, we kind of just spoke about it. Kind of just spoke about it with this next position. So with the 209th pick in the draft, we had selected Matt Golbin from Michigan State, a center. So this kind of goes back to where we could have picked a center at 187. We didn't do it. We chose to stick to our board. And here it is. We have Matt Golbin here at 209, who I think can and possibly will develop into a great, great, great center. I believe he only gave up maybe 2 sacks last season, maybe 5 pressures. He doesn't give up a lot of pressure. He's a strong-handed guy. You can't really move him around a lot. He's solid. Um, I think that he can eventually become our starting center. I don't think he's going to be our starting center this year, but I do think maybe after a year or two, he can develop as or maybe even later in the season. Who knows? We know the injury bug can kind of hit us pretty bad. Um, but I think with time and getting used to the NFL speed and NFL strength, I think eventually he can develop into a starting center. I think he played really well at Michigan State. And again, you want your center, your center, especially when you have a great right guard like we do, and you have a developing, pretty good right tackle. Um, when you have an overall good line, you don't need your center to be excellent. You want them to have a strong base. You want them to have strong hands. You don't want, player just kind of going, running over them. And I feel like Golden can hold his own. But I don't think he has to be perfect. Like I don't think that he has to be the best center, one of the best centers in the league, and possibly pay him, like the Raiders did, a $27 million a year. I don't think that he has to be that, especially with this line. I think we have some good players on this line, and I'm not too worried about our O line going into the season. But I think that eventually Matt Gobin can and will turn into a great center for him. Plus, we like that position flex. He did play some guard, both right and left guard, and center during his college career. So we see that he's has that position flex. He can move around the line. So just in case, if hits the fan, that Goldman can kind of step in and help you out in a game if we go down at guard or either guard positions, he can kind of help you out there. So another player that will definitely make the team because we didn't really have a backup center to begin with. So yeah, I like this pick, Matt Goldman. I'm going to give this one an A. I think that this was a great pick, and finding a good center here in the sixth round, I think was just a great pick for us. So I like this pick a lot. Um, Next, this name uh, is gonna probably mess me up all season, but with the 223rd pick in the seventh round, we selected a quarterback out of Rutgers, Ethan. I want to just call him Ethan K, but Ethan Kalia Manis. Uh, so from the tape that I saw, he has a good arm. Don't get me wrong. Um, but in 2024, he really didn't show a lot. Um, I believe he maybe had, and it's kind of his standard. Seems like he kind of averages like 20 touchdowns and 7 interceptions a season. He had around those numbers in 2024. I think he picked that up a little bit last season, where he had maybe around 25 touchdowns and 5 to 7 interceptions, kind of similar numbers. But he can sling that rock around. He does have a great arm. He's not that mobile quarterback that we are used to having, especially as a backup quarterback. So I'm not really sure about this pick. Usually, as your even when you're trying to develop a quarterback, you don't want him to be completely different from your starting QB. So and this one is completely opposite. He does not have great mobility back there in the pocket. Does he have a great arm or good arm? Yes. Did he improve on his accuracy from 2024 to 2025? Yes. But again, I kind of want my third, fourth string QB um, to have some mobility because if you're going to develop and possibly be the backup to JD, if JD goes down, we will have to again change our entire offense. Take out a lot of those plays because of um, the non mobility or that immobility that Ethan K has. So um, not really fond of this pick. Um, but again, in the seventh round, what these picks typically don't make the team unless they really stand out in OTAs and training camp. So could we have went corner and try to develop him? Possibly, but if we did, would he have really made the team? I'm not too sure. So um what I think this pick really does is really put Sam Hartman on notice. You know, we saw last season when JD went down and Mariota went down, I I was one of the fans who assumed and just automatically thought Sam Hartman is going to be we're going to see some Sam Hartman this season. It, to me, it was a given. You start the season all with JD as your one, Mariota as your number two quarterback, and Sam Hartman as your third. If JD 5 and Mariota gets hurt on any most teams, almost every team, your third QB is next. That's what he's there for. He was on your practice squad. He's been with us since 2024. He knows the offense. He plays in the preseason. He knows the plays. He knows the offense. He's thrown to our players. What did we do? We bring in Jeff Driscoll and Josh Johnson. That's who we bring in. And we don't bring them in to back up Sam. We brought them in to start. Mariota went down. Josh Johnson came in and won a game. But and I wish we didn't. But Josh Johnson came in and won a game. Jeff was backup to Josh. Sam Hartman was still in the practice squad. Well, he was not in the practice squad, but he was a third QB. How in the hell, if you start the season off at 3 as a third quarterback and 2 quarterbacks go down, you still wind up as a third quarterback? You want to know what that tells me? By any means necessary, there was no way in hell Sam Hartman was going to touch that field in a regular season game. If you telling me that last season, what you think is going to be different next season? Not a damn thing. Sam Hartman will not touch a field for the Commanders. And that's a shame. He'll touch it for preseason. But to me, that shows a hell of a lot. It's no excuse. It's no reason. He wasn't dealing with any injuries. I would not be surprised if, and I spoke about this early last season in our earlier videos when we first started this podcast. I felt like Sam Hartman was not going to develop into a backup quarterback. And I felt and I still feel like he's looking to be a coach of some type, like a quarterback's coach. We was hearing rumors last season that he was like a errand boy. Like if they needed like snacks or something, or they needed like something like that, like if they needed like videos or different things loaded up on the iPads or something set up, it was Sam Hartman setting up stuff for like the QBs in the QB room. Not really a participant in like, like you're actually a quarterback. You're like kind of like an assistant. Like you already in that type of role. Stop wasting a roster spot. Like if Sam Hartman is on a practice squad roster spot next season, I'm gonna be pissed the hell off. Cause what you here for? To staple papers? To upload clips on a screen? Like what are you here for? You're not here to actually play. Because when it's time to play and you have your opportunity, they're not gonna look your way. So why are you here? If you want to become a quarterback assistant, or even not even on the actual staff, but even if you want to be like a freaking Even if you just wanted to be there, get off the roster, intern, just don't take up a spot. So I think that this Ethan K draft pick in the seventh round is to replace his ass because they probably saw that they're not, which I think they saw it last season before the season started. Sam Hartman was not it. He's not going to develop into a solid backup quarterback. To me, they should have cut him last season before the season started. They decided to keep him. We've everybody saw with their eyes they don't want to play him. Now they have his replacement. It's time to move on. Become that quarterback assistant that you are trying to be. Move on. Don't take up a spot. So that is how I feel about that Sam Hartman and that Ethan K draft pick. Not really. I mean, with this one, I give it probably a C. I mean, because it is what it is. I think with this pick, I don't think that Ethan will uh, develop as the backup QB for us. I don't like that he doesn't fit the style of our starting QB. I kind of want a developing quarterback to kind of have similar traits, or at least if if you have like a mobile quarterback, let your developing quarterback have a little bit of mobility. So I give this one a C, but overall, with the few picks that we had, I think that this was a great, great, great draft by Adam Peters. You can't go wrong with the first pick. The second pick, I think, could develop as a great number two uh, to Terry. Hopefully, with some great development, he can be a Terry replacement. I'm in the I'm in the group that I really don't want Terry to leave here and go to another team. I want Terry to finish his career here. I think that we could use him and move him around for those later years when he's not. We don't have to necessarily have him and utilize him on the outside as much. The older he gets, we can kind of have him in the slot, use more bunch or type of formations where he doesn't really have to try to break somebody down and go deep. He don't have to be our deep threat anymore. We can find that replacement now, kind of use him as those slants, going across the field. Hopefully still take some attention his way. But Terry is one of those players that I hope we can find a way to keep him on the team. I know, with his contract it seems like we was waiting so long for that contract for him to get his contract, and as we're almost there again, we'll have to look at that again to re-sign him. But we'll probably have to look at that next off season, Terry's contract again, and what that's going to look like. So, but I do hopefully think that they can find a way to keep him on the team. But I think that Antonio Williams pick is a great pick for the team. I think that he'll turn out to be a great player for us. Um, Same with Joshua Josephs. I think he'll be a great backup for us starting off. Hopefully, he can, you know, turn into a greater pick than just a backup, but he has all the traits to do that. We can see if he'll develop into that. And then when it gets down to those later rounds, you just hope that they can contribute to the team with those fifth rounds, sixth and seventh round picks. You just hope that they can find a way to make and contribute to the team in some way. We'll see if that happens with Katron Allen and Golbin, center from Michigan State. I think that he's going to definitely help us out immensely, not only this season coming up, but in the future. But yeah, man, this draft was a good one. Also like that they decreased the time between each pick from 10 minutes to 8. I think that that improved, especially that first round. If you tuned in for our live episode of the first round, I think it went by smooth. I think it went by quickly, even with the commercial breaks that I think that they tried to just flood us with at times. with it seems like they put on a commercial and then 2 picks later they went to commercial break again. But even with all that, I think the draft kind of flew by a little bit faster, which is great. Um, so hopefully, hopefully that can even lower it a little bit more. But yeah, man. But that is going to do it for this Commanders draft recap video. Again, my overall grade for this was about an A. But also on a side note, I do want to appreciate everyone for helping us get to our goal of reaching 200 subs. You don't know how much that does for the channel. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this video. What is your grade for the Commanders draft? And give this video a like. You don't know what it does for our channel, and it basically promotes the hell out of it and helps this video reach other Commanders fans as well. So thank you for tuning in with me again. Until next time, we'll see you. Peace.